Kia ora and welcome to this episode of the Amateur Austenite. I'm Frances Duncan, author and the founder of the Jane Austen Society of Aotearoa, New Zealand. My co-host is Rachel Pilwell.
Hello.
Today we're discussing Chapter 10 of Emma by Jane Austen. So in Chapter 10, Emma and Harriet go to visit a poor, sick family, and we get to see that Emma's maybe not so much of an asshole and does kind of care about other people, except as they're leaving, she's like, oh, I will never forget how hard it is for them, etc., etc., and then they run into Mr. Elton almost immediately, and she's distracted.
It almost became character development.
But at least she does it, though. We know that anyone who had any kind of money, it was kind of their role to make sure that the poor are okay.
Which is a really sad thing that society isn't like that now.
Some people are and some people are not, but I think that there's a difference that you have to be some sort of deserving poor. And that charity is seen as, you know, you have to be grateful and deserving and all this sort of shit instead of like, how about some fucking human decency?
Yeah, it's
And
not about helping
dignity.
fellow man. It's in almost a way, it's about looking good yourself.
Yeah.
Rather than doing it out of the goodness of being a good person. At least Emma is going to see these people. Because there is some sort of relationship, though, between them, right?
She knows the family. She's been to see them before. She's doing a good thing, her duty as a woman of a certain rank, taking care of villagers who are not in a good way. She's the only Austen character that we see doing this. People talk about that a lot. Probably because, look, she's not a bad person. Look, and Austen made sure this was here so you don't completely hate her. And when she's talking about the Martins earlier, when Harriet brings them up, she's like, had they been lower, I might have wanted to help them, but they don't need my help. They're above and below my notice.
Yeah.
They're not poor enough for me to help, and they're not rich enough for me to want to hang out with.
And honestly, that might be the best place to be. Not having to deal with the meddling of Emma Woodhouse.
She does good stuff in this chapter, though. I mean, not about Harriet and Mr. Elton, obviously. I think we're all on the same page about that one. But with this family, she's really aware of the stuff that they're going through and doesn't expect great things from them or necessary virtue or gratitude. She's like, hey, stuff's bad. I've got you some food. Is there anything I can do?
It is goodness of heart, but it's nice to kind of just have this other little side to Emma that I feel like we don't, well, at least not that I can remember seeing in many of Austen's other works. I feel, is Emma the richest of her heroines?
Yeah.
Yeah. Emma is the only one of the main heroines to have that kind of power and opportunity to go and...
Well, the others would have done it as well because it's expected. We hear about Anne Elliot in Persuasion visiting everyone before she leaves Kellynch, and we hear about the Dashwood sisters going to a farm who had a new baby to see how they were doing and stuff. But it's not clear whether that was actually a charity thing or whether it was
just visiting.
Yeah, just visiting
It's
neighbours.
more of a social call.
But because they weren't mentioned in the same way as the other people, it seems like they might have been people of a lesser rank, so it might have felt
like
charitable. I don't know. It's very complex, such as their
it's the subtlety.
Class system is. And they go past Mr. Elton's house on the way to get there. His blessed abode, which totally sounds like something Mr. Collins would say, and it's so interesting that just keep coming back to Mr. Collins.
Yeah, I feel like the more we've been going and dissecting this, the more parallels I see between them.
And you wouldn't think it.
No, because when you're looking at it from not a more distant glance, but just not really breaking it down, there are differences in their characters and in their behaviours. The main difference, though, is their looks and how people perceive them.
Their manner as well.
Manner, yeah, because Mr. Elton is very, very well regarded. You know, he's very well liked. He has women chasing him. Mr. Collins, on the other hand, very snivelly is the word that comes to mind. He doesn't have this charm about him that Elton does.
And I think both led by their wives as well, that Charlotte will make Mr. Collins a better man, or at least a less irritating man, and Mrs. Elton makes Mr. Elton worse.
Yeah, Mrs. Elton just feeds into his whole ego, whereas Charlotte at least tries to tamper Mr. Collins's.
I was thinking about Mrs. Elton as I was driving here today. She comes in with a certain amount of money. They say it's like £10,000, so maybe it's like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
But because of her, Mr. Elton has to have a carriage. We don't know if he had one before. Host parties and dinners and pay for her expensive outfits.
Mm-hmm.
She wants to be the prettiest one around. And perhaps he's not eating out as often because he's not being invited, because now he's not a single man. He's got a wife at home. She may bring a little bit of money, but he may actually end up worse off.
Because she's not a frugal person in any way. She definitely has been used to a particular way of living, and she would not compromise that.
She's very nouveau riche. She's flashy. Emma's more likely to be understated, classy, elegant.
Because she doesn't need to stand out as much.
But Mrs. Elton thinks that class is money, and it is not the case. So she's a bit flashy and crass.
To try and make herself seem better and richer.
And when you look at people thinking that Emma tries to run things and stepping on people's toes and stuff, when you compare her to Mrs. Elton, it's actually a huge difference. And you can see Emma's not trying to take up space that's not hers. Whereas Mrs. Elton's like, I lead the entire village now. And Emma's like, I'm just going to let you think that. That's okay. I'm not going to have an argument with you.
You're wrong, but we'll get into the description of Mr. Elton's house, I'm sure. But the way Emma kind of talks about it in this chapter, it's obviously, it could never compare to something like Hartfield, but it's not amazing. It's not this big, beautiful, rich, classy house. It just feels so against Mrs. Elton as a person to kind of be living in this space. It's almost like she acts like she's living at a place like Hartfield, and then she goes home to this.
It's clear that Mr. Elton's done a lot of work on it since he moved in about a year ago, but there's only so much you can do with not a great house to start with.
You've got to work with the bones that you got. From what I'm aware, these houses were passed from one vicar to the next. And so it's like, well, actually, how long has that house been standing?
Probably a long time,
yeah. Oftentimes, one of the first buildings built in a new town is the church. And then the rest of the village comes in around the church. And so obviously the first house probably built after a church would be the one for the person to live in, for the vicar to live in.
They can sleep in the church, surely.
Well, yeah, they could sleep in the church, at least to start with. Closer to God, a blessed abode. That's it.
Literally. Yeah, Emma doesn't think much of his house. Harriet's excitement to see it and want to see it makes Emma think Harriet must really be in love with this guy. She thinks his house is so lovely, and it's kind of like Mr. Elton saying that Harriet has wit, which she doesn't have.
Love is blind. I can agree with that statement, because you and Mr. Knightley, or at least you're very blind to the other people's affections, Emma, but not quite in the way that you mean of blind to each other's faults, I think.
Yeah, different. And she is like, oh, I wish we could go in. Oh, we've got a plot to get that to happen. And then how conveniently at the end of the chapter, they run into Mr. Elton, who saw them walk past. And is like, oh, I was also going to visit the people that need help, but I'm going to ignore them now and walk with you guys who don't need my help. Until Emma pretends to break a lace, or actually breaks a lace. After they've gone to the charitable visit, the lane makes a slight bend. Mr. Elton is in sight. It's kind of this like, moment.
Yeah. The handsome man striding across the field towards you. Except it's just Mr. Elton on the street. You've got this big classical music playing as he walks.
And Emma thinks it's romantic, and she's like, it's so romantic that they were both going to help a poor family. I wish I wasn't here and it was just them, because I'm so sure he would propose. So she tries to go on a separate path. But Harriet's habits of dependence meant that she's following. And of course, Mr. Elton's going to follow as well. They're both just following her around. It's hilarious. It's like a mother with the little ducklings.
Oh my God. It is a little bit, isn't it? Emma is obviously this... I don't want to say prized possession, but she's the leader. She's the one that they're like, for different reasons they're following her. She could go anywhere and she'd make the decision and they'll follow. Whereas if either of them went in the other route, Emma would just be like, cool.
I'm doing my thing, you guys do your thing.
My thing. Yeah. She's very self-possessed.
She's like, this is not okay. Stop. So that they're not following me, so that they walk alone together. Like, should it be this hard, Emma? Should it be this hard?
Surely if they liked each other, Emma, they would want to go for a walk, just the two of them, and would be more than happy for you to step to another path to keep going without them. But no, it's not happening. It's just not. She is just so blind to the indifference. Harriet's not overly indifferent, but she just thinks that she should have those feelings because that's what Emma tells her.
You got to remember, Harriet's 17.
Oh my god.
I would not be a teenager again for anything.
I cannot imagine all of this happening to me at 17. I'd be like, ew, no. Okay. I probably would be like that now at 27.
But also your ace, it makes a difference, right?
But I think even at 17, like, I feel like at 17 I had enough understanding of myself that I wouldn't just be randomly following this person who I thought was better than me. But also, I would have had such a worse attitude towards everybody in this entire thing. God, I was a bit of a brat. Looking back, I'm like, oh my god, that's so young.
It's really
She's a baby. She's not even going to be fully cooked for another 8 years. Emma's not even fully cooked at this point either, is she?
So she fiddles with her boat, and then a kid from the cottage comes up because told the kid to go to get broth from Hartfield. So she walks with the kid, but the kid's walking really slow, so she has to speed up and almost gets to them. She purposely breaks one of her laces. That's real mature, Emma.
Also, another display of wealth. She's like, it's just a shoelace. I don't care. Someone else will fix it, or I'll get a new one. She doesn't have to worry about it at all. Whereas I'm sure for the charitable people just the people she's going to give charity to,
it's a big deal.
That would be a big deal. They'd be like, oh no, my shoelace.
I need to get another one.
I need to get another one. Her just purposely breaking perfectly good items to get two people to talk to each other. Emma, you're trying too hard to shove the situation. It's a square peg in a round hole.
They are talking. They're talking about food. Mr. Elton was at Mr. Cole's the night before and he had a good time and was talking about the good food. And Emma's like, seriously? This is what you're talking about? What are you doing?
She's like, how are you not proposing already?
This is ridiculous. Gonna have to break my legs.
She's so delusional. Like, I feel like this whole chapter is just so much of Emma refusing to see what's right in front of her in Harriet and Mr. Elton, because this is kind of the first chance that the two of them have to speak together without much of an audience, and whether you can call Emma an audience at all really when she's there, but I mean, you could both just be yourselves around her if you wanted, but it's just like she's just refusing to see that there's nothing there.
Yeah.
She's so desperate for the two of them to be together that she's willing to do anything at this point almost to kind of make it happen.
You see what you want to see. She wants it to be there. So everything that might be an indicator of something else, she creates a different explanation for or just ignores.
Yeah.
And they do end up going into the vicarage because she's broken her lace, but it's hurried off in like a paragraph, and she's talking to the housekeeper very resolutely to give them privacy, which is just hilarious. And they're still not engaged.
Very funny how short this chapter is compared to the previous chapter. The previous chapter with the charade, it was all Emma still wanting to see what she wanted to, but there was so much more to it, all this subtlety. And in this chapter, it's just she does everything she can, it doesn't work, and it's almost like Awesome is just like, Emma's mad, she's going to end this chapter now, you know?
Mr. Elton literally going out because he saw them, and it makes me think of Charlotte Lucas going out to see Mr. Collins. He did pretty much lie and was like, no, I was totally going to see that family to look after them like you guys were.
I'm also a good person. Yes. Very good.
Good person.
Yeah. It's just him putting on airs, trying to make himself look so much better than he is. Actually, would he have been visiting these people at all? Maybe?
He should be.
He should be.
It's his job to also care for the poor.
I guess we don't see Mr. Elton outside of when he's interacting with Emma. It's mentioned that he's like at Hartfield pretty frequently, and last night he went to Mr. Cole's. Well, actually, when you're not off in London getting a picture framed or doing the stuff, are you actually going and doing your job and visiting these people? We don't see his whole day, his whole story. I honestly don't know if he is. Actually, something I feel like that Mr. Collins would do. It's never mentioned.
I mean, he probably doesn't help them terribly much.
No, I think he probably just goes and orates at them. And
every week I go and see every family in the parish. He'd have some sort of schedule and be like, this is the proper thing to do. I will do the proper thing.
Unless Lady Catherine comes calling, and then I must be there for her.
Yes, very different.
Probably going and telling all these people, oh, Lady Catherine did this and said this, and doesn't Rosings look lovely in the, you know?
Well, yes, there's that whole thing about her sailing out to scold them into plenty. I imagine Mr. Collins will be doing the same thing. Do Mr. Elton's parishioners ever see him except at the pulpit?
Yeah, or unless they've invited him for a meal or an evening party or something.
And that's only a certain rank of society
doing that. Is he doing that much charitable work?
It'd be interesting to know, because we don't have any word of other vicars in town, so he is it. Because they have parish funds for the poor, so he should be administering those. But perhaps he hands it off to somebody else to do. Before they go on their charitable visit, Harriet's like, I don't understand why you're not married. I've never been in love. It's not my nature. I don't think I ever could, really. I think she's kind of practical about it. Some people think it's sad, but she's like, I've not been in love. And you know what? I'm in a really good position right now. My dad adores me. I run his life. I run the house.
I believe few married women are half as much mistress of their husband's house as I am of Hartfield, and never could I expect to be so truly beloved and important, so always first and always right in any man's eyes as I am in my father.
And that's so lovely.
It's really lovely, and it's like, it displays the strong relationship between her and her father and their love for each other, but it also shows that her privilege of knowing, and it's really nice that she knows how fortunate she is, and that she is in this incredible position to be the mistress of her own house as an unmarried woman of this big, lovely, large estate. It's probably one of my favourite lines in the book. I think it really says so much about Emma and the life that she lives. Going back to her, I've never been in love. I mean, Highbury's pretty small. There's not as much society. Who are you going to, really, who is she supposed to fall in love with? Because, I mean, I know Mr. Elton wants to think he's got a shot, but before he showed up, most of the people that they're associating with are either women or men so much older than she is. Not that that's a deal breaker, as we know, with her and Mr. Knightley, but it's there's not so many options for her to fall in love, and especially in this time frame with courting and stuff. If you're falling in love with someone, assuming you're courting, you're going to get married at some point.
You think her father should have taken her, or get someone to take her to London so she can meet eligible people, but she doesn't want to.
He doesn't want her to.
No.
Mr. Woodhouse would love her to never be married and to, he wants her to be happy, but he doesn't want her to leave home. He doesn't want her to be away from him for any amount of time. And, I mean, I don't know if it's ever said specifically that he dislikes London, but surely he does.
The air in London's very bad. Yeah. Apparently it was worse then than it is now, and that's saying something.
What? Even without all the... I guess
I think it's
got all the...
Because I think they do have, the street lamps.
Oh, yeah, they had all the gas street lamps and things. You had all the horse manure from all the horses. The industrial factories and stuff would have been a bit closer to town as well.
Although, did they come later? I don't know.
There still would have been some along the Thames at that point.
Mr. Woodhouse would never go to London. Can't imagine that. Also, had a long trip in a carriage. Although you can go there and back in a day, so it's not that far.
I actually thought it was so much further than that between Highbury and London.
Frank Churchill goes there and back, although he does go on horseback.
If he can go just on horseback there back in the day, it's that's not very far at all.
Emma again is compared to Miss Bates by Harriet. I am nothing like Miss Bates. I am rich and beautiful and independent. Yeah. I am not going to have any problems. When people have no money, they're sour and grumpy and people don't like them. Although having said that, Miss Bates actually is really happy, so she doesn't fit that pattern.
Yeah. Miss Bates is so the opposite.
Why did you say that then?
Yeah.
Why did you say that?
It's just Emma trying to drag down Miss Bates again, even though she's not there. She is so condescending towards her, but not in the condescension of the way it's used in the book.
It's another thing about Emma not interrogating her beliefs. There's a cliche that all poor people are sad or poor single women are sad. And even though she very clearly says, even in the same paragraph, accept Miss Bates.
Yeah.
She's real happy, regardless, and she would share her money with anybody. You're not hearing yourself?
Is Miss Bates the exception to the rule, or is Emma just incorrect? Emma is just... She's so almost horrified at the thought of being compared to Miss Bates in any way.
Yeah.
Which is so sad, because Miss Bates is, I think, one of the loveliest, nicest characters in the book.
Yeah, I was listening to an audiobook of this and listening to her speeches, and she's just truly delighted about everything. She's surrounded by her friends, and she's so happy and grateful for everything.
Every piece of news is the most exciting thing to happen. Which is so fair, because again, what else is happening in this town? You know?
There's no TV.
Yeah.
She does.
And it's not like she can, you know, how we spoke before about, you know, what you would do in the evenings of practicing dances and stuff. Who's she going to dance with? Her mother? Who can't move? Gossip is one of those ways to entertain yourself. Yes, she gossips, but she's never malicious about it either. Actually, if I was compared to, if all the characters was compared to Miss Bates, I'd be quite pleased. Like, yeah, sure. Happy to be that character.
And I think the text is kind of coloured by Emma's perceptions of Miss Bates. So we do tend to see her as an irritant unless you're really thinking about it. Yeah. Emma's like, oh God, Miss Bates again.
She's often made out to be similar to Mrs. Bennet, being a bit ridiculous, a bit silly, and a bit, I think shrill is one of the terms that always comes to mind, of where it's just they're talking non-stop and it's grating. But such different intentions between those two characters. That is why Mrs. Bennet is not a villain, but a less likeable character in Pride and Prejudice compared to Miss Bates, who I think when you really look at her is incredibly likeable.
She just wants good for everybody. Mrs. Bennet is bitchy about people, but Miss Bates just loves everyone, especially her niece, which you know is the closest thing she has to a child, and something to talk about of her own that's gossip, because otherwise she's just telling people about other people.
She doesn't want to have to share everybody else's news all the time. She wants to have her own things to talk about too, and that just happens to be Jane. But Jane is wonderful.
She is.
Like, yeah, totally. Like, tell everybody about that super awesome family member of yours who's doing this really great stuff who you're so proud of.
She's smart, she's talented, she's pretty, she's elegant. Maybe we don't like her so much because Emma doesn't like her, because Emma's like, I wish I was as pretty and talented as her.
Yeah.
Even though I'm in a better position and have more money.
Emma really skews our opinions of some of the characters, and when you're not breaking them down, because she's the protagonist. We're supposed to agree with her, you know? We're supposed to be understanding of her opinions and be like, you know what, yeah, you're right. And I think I was like that the first time or two that I read Emma. I was very much like, Miss Bates again. But as I've gotten older, I'm definitely way more understanding of these other characters around Emma and how she perceives them as not the way they are.
Emma literally says that she is sick of the very name of Jane Fairfax, if that isn't the rudest thing.
The only time she really hears Jane's name is when she sees Miss Bates, which is semi-regularly. But I'm also just like, well, come on, just... I mean, I do understand if you're constantly being told the same thing over and over again, that it does get a bit tiresome. But she has so much animosity towards Jane.
I'm sure Mr. Woodhouse talks about Emma the way that Miss Bates talks about Jane Fairfax.
Honestly, yes, absolutely. Mr. Woodhouse is constantly touting Emma, and Isabella as well, I'm sure, but probably more frequently Emma because she's there. She would never complain about her father extolling her virtues so greatly to everybody. I think Emma would prefer everybody else also extols her virtues all the time as well. If everybody was constantly saying, so Emma Woodhouse, she's so beautiful and fair and lovely and the kindest woman in the world, and she'd be like,
yep, I'll take it.
You can say more, you know. It's like, wonderful matchmaker as well.
The whole story with Jane and Frank that happens between pages is more of a love story, more of a romance, more of the sort of thing you'd expect from a novel. And that Jane Fairfax, this underprivileged beauty, is more of an appropriate heroine for the sort of thing that you expect than Emma. And it's pretty certain intentional on Austen's part to flip the script like that.
To have this, not quite side character, but to kind of make the protagonist side characters. It is something you think about, is like there's the trope in so many stories of the sidekick or the best friend character. You know, Charlotte Lucas is one of those very classic best friend characters. And it's kind of nice to give these other characters a voice over a traditional kind of heroine-hero romance. I think if Austen had done a short story based specifically on Frank and Jane's romance. It would have been so well perceived. Like, everybody would have loved it. It's so nice to have those tropes changed.
Emma and Mr. Knightley have such a calm love story comparatively.
Mm-hmm.
They've been bickering for years. There's that amount of drama, but apart from that...
Is Emma the villain in anybody's story?
I think at one point she's a villain in Jane's story because Emma is flirting with Frank and Emma thinks that Jane was involved with Mr. Dixon. I think Frank tells Jane this and thinks it's funny, but it's kind of not an okay thing.
Yeah, like Jane's probably would be...
Mr. Martin probably thinks Emma's a villain.
Oh, yeah, she would be the villain in Mr. Martin's story.
Mr. Elton thinks she's a villain when she rejects him.
Harriet wouldn't see her as a villain, but she could be the villain of Harriet's story as well.
Yeah. I mean...
The devil on the shoulder.
Even Harriet could be a more appropriate heroine because she's just so beautiful and innocent. These big things happen to her and she falls in love so many times.
We obviously see Emma as a heroine, but if she's the villain of somebody else's story and the heroine of this one, you've got to think, well, was the villain of other people's story the hero or the heroine in that story too? In their own retelling, you know?
Everyone's a villain of someone's story. It's just like everyone's someone's crazy ex. Harriet is like, but what are you going to do when you're old? How are you going to keep yourself busy? Like, apparently you need kids to have any kind of life. And Emma very clearly is like, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing now. Also, I've got nieces and nephews. I can look after them. It'll be great. But I can't imagine Emma living at Hartfield with Isabella and John.
Oh, God. It would be awful. It would be the same as, like, living with her father, because Isabella is so similar to Mr. Woodhouse.
But she wouldn't have the position anymore. I could see her kind of like covertly running everything.
You know what I think she would have done? Even if her and Mr. Knightley hadn't gotten together, she would have just ended up going over to Donwell and being like, I'm here now. This is now my house. She would have just gone and walked in and be like, Knightley, shut up. I'm not the mistress of that house. I'm going to just be the mistress of this one until you get married.
That's hilarious.
And I think Mr. Knightley would have almost just let her do it as well.
Like, we're brother and sister. It's totally fine. I'm moving in.
Moving in.
Although
interesting to have Emma be kind of, at this moment, kind of think of herself as almost child-free without it actually being much of a concept. You know, being child-free wouldn't have really been the concept at the time, like it is now. But to kind of, for her to kind of be like, actually, I don't really need kids. It's not, she never intends to really get married, and thus she never intends to have children.
Kind of revolutionary.
Yeah, and so it's like, well, obviously, she marries Mr. Knightley, we assume they have kids, but at this stage, she kind of just doesn't expect to ever have kids and have that life and be a mother. Fair.
Ahead of her time.
Ahead of her time.
And that's our discussion of Chapter 10 of Emma by Jane Austen. I'm Frances Duncan. This has been Rachel Pilwer. Thank you for listening, and we wish you happy reading.
Bye. Whose story are you the villain of, Frances?
Probably my first husband.